What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Build. This is a series where we do a sit down with fellow car enthusiasts, just like Mike here, and talk about not only the build, but the story behind it. So on today's episode, we have my friend Mike here and his 2006 WRX with a 1JZ swapped into it. So my first question for you, what initially got you into Subarus?
You know, I just remember when I was like a kid and I'd be driving down the freeway with my dad or whatever, one of my parents, and there was these cars with bright blue headlights. They were bright blue when they drove by, and they had these big old wings on them, and I go, I'm gonna own one of those.
Are you serious?
That's all it was. It literally, I had no idea what the cars were, anything about them. I was a kid. Yeah. Like I was, you know, way before I could drive. And I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I was like, I want to know more about those. And then I got older and I found out, oh, turbos are cool and all-wheel drive is cool. And Subaru's like, yes, make you cool. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, definitely got to get one now.
But this was not your first Subaru, right?
No.
Yeah. First you had a Forester?
Yeah, I think the Forester was the first one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why Forester over anything else?
It was cheap. I needed a car, and it was something I could rebuild the engine on. Because it didn't have a turbo on that one, so I was able to pick it up for next to nothing, rebuild the engine, put it back together, and drive it. It was just a daily for me.
How did you end up buying this Subaru?
I kind of went away from lowered cars for a while, and I bought my truck. And you remember that truck? It was a Tacoma.
Yeah, pre-runner. It was freaking gnarly.
It was fun. So much fun. And when I was done with that, I was just like, I don't want to climb into my car anymore. I'm just over this. And then I remember that I really liked Subarus, and I started to learn a little bit about them again. And then I just kind of tried to hunt down a WRX that was worth bringing home. I wanted to get an STI. I went to a couple of dealerships, drove them. I just couldn't afford it when I was looking at buying one of these cars.
They were so much more expensive, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean,
like, it was ridiculous.
An STI was over 20 grand. I think it was like 22,000 was the one we were looking at. And it was a 2007, blue, big wing, blue headlights. It was, dude, it was the dream car, right? Yeah. And so I kind of gave up on that dream for a while just because, I needed to be realistic. My 570 credit score also said that I couldn't own that car. We've come a long way since then, all right?
And I mean, I feel like I've said this story once before, but literally why I bought a WRX instead of an STI was because you. Do you remember this? You took me for a drive. You're like, because I feel like I was going back and forth with you. I was like, yo, like, I'm thinking about getting a Subaru, all this stuff, right? Like, you definitely knew I wanted one because you got one before me. And then I wanted an STI, and then I feel like you were just like, look, like, just drive my car and see, like, if this is what kind of like what you want. He's like, because I feel like you were trying to say, like, I feel like you're underestimating how much you can actually do with the WRX,
Right.
And then you gave me a ride, and I was like, that's it.
That's all I
feel
need.
like a month and a half, 2 months later, I was like, all right, I'll just WRX.
Yeah, and in retrospect, should you have gotten the STI?
Probably
Maybe.
now. But we didn't know like how gnarly I was gonna get into it. We didn't know this was gonna happen either.
Totally.
You know what I'm saying? So
right. And honestly, at this point, I'm glad I butchered a WRX instead of an STI that may actually be worth something down the road to somebody. Yeah. So in that aspect, it was good. Yeah. And I'm okay with that.
Well, I guess we can start talking about, the modifications done to this car in particular. You don't have to go to every detail, but I guess you could already tell by the title, it is 1JZ swapped, but what else to it is there?
I wanted to try to make it look as integrated as possible to make it look like it was supposed to be there. Granted, yeah, everything's bright green, but as far as like the factory fit, not cutting as much of the car as possible, I wanted to do that, and that's where I really started the build, was trying to maintain absolutely as much of the factory body as I could. And so obviously the biggest modification was going from all-wheel drive to rear-wheel drive. And I have a ton of people ask me, well, why isn't it all-wheel drive? And we can look at my
Well, we'll look at the other car if you want to see what it takes to actually do that. But
that being said, I needed to find a good transmission that was going to be able to hold a little bit more horsepower than the Subaru ones could, than the 5-speed. Yeah, especially. Dangerland. And I ended up talking to a company on the East Coast called Fast of Westchester. They built the RB powered WRX, the Panda WRX,
Okay,
that white
the newer
hatchback.
one. Yeah.
And I called up Dave over there and I said, hey, I'm really intrigued by the car you did and I want to do one for myself. And he was the one that turned me on to the 350Z transmission. And so the biggest things that I got from him were the Nissan 350Z drivetrain. So transmission, rear end, all being super stout OEM components.
Yeah.
And it turns out they had a really decent price tag too. There was tons of adapter plates to go from the JZ to that transmission. So I ordered the Collins adapter, got it all together. Once we had it all together, threw it in the car. Just got the engine hoist out, started positioning it, trying to see what hit where and what didn't hit where, how low we had to move things.
Yeah.
And then once we kind of got it in a good spot, I built a subframe around that.
So you built the front subframe.
Correct.
Correct.
I built the front subframe I just used my old subframe, built the fixture around it, and then said, okay, I need the suspension pieces to end up in the factory locations, but the motor mount section was going to change. And so I built most of it, put it under the car, and then built the rest of it in the car. Built the motor mounts in the car, took them out, welded them, put it back in.
It's just a bunch of in and out, in and out, in and out, right? Pretty much the whole time.
Exactly. And then once the motor and transmission and everything were mounted, that was the easy part. So we took all of that, and then I decided I was over it on building the rear subframe. So you just go and buy one.
Yeah.
It's all available now. There's companies that make them. TSS Fab is what I use.
What's the rear diff? It's 350?
350Z.
Okay.
That was like $100.
But obviously drive shaft has to be custom.
Yeah. Drive. Well, I mean, that's just only length.
I feel like you had like some issues with axles. You have to custom, right? Like, wasn't that a thing? Like, what rear hubs do you have?
I have STI hubs now.
Okay. Wait, didn't you name it something? Because it's like, it's Subaru, Toyota, Nissan.
It's the Toy Subasan.
Toy Subasan. Absolutely, we love that. All right, so I mean, now you guys pretty much get the point. It's a 1JZ, essentially just with full 350, and you gotta have some custom drive shafts, stuff like that. But what was that?
The only thing we didn't talk about was wiring.
Oh God, tell me
Because
about it.
that's what everybody is most afraid of, I think. And it really was the easiest part.
Okay.
I worked with Tweak Performance. Dude, everybody that I work with is on the East Coast for some reason. There's nobody here that does this stuff.
Because we're whack. I think that's what it is.
Or they're just
We'll
cool
move over there.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
Deal. And people worry about wiring and making it like a big old issue. It's really not that bad. I wanted to initially keep the factory ECU and the standalone ECU.
Okay.
So that way you could plug in and get all your OBD2 readings and stuff off the factory ECU. But it just wasn't viable and wasn't necessary. Whereas like the newer version, like 2008 plus, you have to have the factory ECU.
Because like CAN bus or whatever?
It uses CAN, but it also has the ABS module and the airbag module all controlled off the factory ECU. So you have to retain that. Yeah, so I mean, I ordered a harness that was basically matched all the OEM stuff for the 1JZ. He asked me what additional sensors I needed, and I said, hey, I want coolant, I want this, I want that, I want oil pressure, every sensor that I wanted, and I removed all the things I didn't want, like all the smog stuff went away. Yeah. And then I said, well, it's going in a Subaru. Oh, bummer. And so he ended up finding the header, the wiring header that matched the ECU, and he ran whatever wires were needed into that header so that the new Haltech ECU could talk to the body of the car. Okay. Right? So there was a bunch of grounds, and then there was some wires for like the check engine light, the coolant temperature, the fuel level, just, miscellaneous things that were required to make it all integrate together. Yeah. In the end of the day, it was plug in that header, mount the ECU, wire up the motor, which had all the plugs, all the terminations, everything labeled, plug it in, and it started first try.
I feel like I remember this,
It was really simple.
Yeah, you're like, it's on.
Yeah, all right. And I made changes later to give me my speedometer back, my tach. The fuel pumps had one minor issue, so we ended up having to run separate wiring for the fuel pumps. But other than that, it was really one of the easiest parts of the whole build.
If you had to say like your top 3 favorite mods you've done to it, what are they? I always find this interesting because they're the smallest things for a lot of people.
Honestly, my favorite part is just building the different things or making.
You can't choose that because I knew you were gonna say that. What's the things? You have to choose the things. It could be color, it could be your shift knob.
Dude, being able to change the color anytime you want is probably my favorite part.
You love building it. That's what you guys need to know. He just likes to build stuff.
So if you want something built, bring it to me. I'll build it and then you can take it home, and that's all. That's all I want.
At any point during the build, was there ever a point where you're just like 100% thought I am giving up? Over it. Over it. And if so, like, tell us about that.
Yeah.
And why did you keep going?
I got to a point where I was like, I've just spent hours and hours and hours, and I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, like,
I feel like you're just treading in place.
One thing fit, and then I took it out and I welded it, and I put it back, and it just didn't fit anymore. I was like, what the fuck? Every time I'd make a change, it wouldn't quite fit, or I had to move something, or hit the hood, or it just like come on.
Right when you think you got it right, you try to close something, and it just.
And I was just over it.
Yeah.
And it'd been sitting for a while, and I was just tired, and I thought I wanted to do other stuff. And, you know, I asked some people like, hey, you know, if I sold you my car, what would you give me for it? And it was always never enough. Yeah. You know, and it'll never be enough, but that's for other reasons. And so I was just tired.
Yeah. So what would your advice be to someone that is aspiring to build a car like this? They want to do a JZ swap in here. What would be like the key things?
Honestly, I would go more broad for anybody doing any car project for anything. I would say have a budget. Yeah. Like, and I say this to everybody because I get probably 5 or 6 messages a day. Hey, how do I do this swap? And the simple answer is you don't just do it, you plan it. You need to say, okay, I have this amount of money. I'm going to put this in the car and then see if those things match up. And if you don't plan out the build, you're gonna do kind of like, I thought I had it all planned out. And I go, oh, I'm missing 5 fittings. Oh, there's $50 in fittings right there. It happens. You know, and oh, I don't have enough hose. Oh, I don't have these bolts. Oh, I got to order this. And that's always going to happen. But if you kind of build that into your budget, then you're good. Because I ended up like way over what I thought I was going to spend.
I feel like there's always going to be like, unfortunately, just the miscellaneous stuff, which I think you have to know that up front. There's no way going around it. Even like, obviously my just regular Subaru engine build is nothing compared to this, but I used to go in my notes, write down how much money I had, write down how much money I need, write down the parts, how much they were, and I thought, okay, I got this, I need to work this many shifts, yada, yada, yada. But there's always gonna be that little bit extra, and you just have to know that that is part of the game. Exactly. It's part of the game, but definitely planning makes it a million times better. If you did sell it for a price that you were comfortable with, what would you get? And I guess you can't say your GC now. You can't say that. Like, what other car interests you that you're kind of like, you want to toy with? If you sold this, what other car would you get?
You know, I really liked my E36.
Dude, can we get one? It was so, I don't think I ever drove that car. I feel like I don't think I knew you that well when I first met you when you had that. Because then you got the truck and whatever, but yeah, I feel that.
Honestly, I would only get one just to put another one of these motors in there.
You're going to take out a straight 6 to put a different straight 6.
Well, exactly. I would put in something beefier. Why wouldn't you? I mean, because think about it. BMW, cast iron block from the factory. JZ, cast iron block. The weight distribution doesn't change for the most part. So you're just putting in a more horsepower capable motor. Makes sense. And you're not changing much of the handling characteristics of the car. But, I mean, in reality, one of these days I'm going to be done with Subarus, and I'm going to buy an R8. Like, that's...
Are you serious? Eventually you want an R8?
Yeah, we actually talk about it quite a bit now.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Would you go V8 or V10?
Oh, V10. Why would you go anything else?
I don't even know why I asked you.
Like, come on.
Oh, that was stupid.
I would buy one of the first-gen ones because, one, they're becoming less expensive, and I can buy a manual. I mean, oh, dual clutch is faster. What would it... I don't care. I like the notchy feeling of those cool transmissions. So, that's probably really realistically the next cool car I'll buy. Because I mean, I've got this, I want to get rid of this eventually and finish my other car, because it's just going to be unique and it's something I get to build. And then the R8 would be something that I could just have that's done, just drive it, maintain it, and that's it. Oh yeah.
Well, I feel we covered pretty damn good amount. I liked it. No, I did like it. Is there anything else you want to add, or you feel pretty good on it?
Honestly, it's just, if you have questions, don't be afraid to ask. There's plenty of people out there that are willing to answer your questions.
I like that.
Always.
That's good.
And it's all about community, man. Helping car people keep car culture alive is kind of becoming more important, especially as it's, you know, working its way out.
Well, I think that's going to be it for this video. If you have any more questions, feel free to comment them down below. Don't flood them with questions in the DMs, because you probably isn't going to have time to answer all of them. But definitely show them some love, for sure. Give them a follow on Instagram. I think that's going to be it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Catch you on the next one. Bye.